This discussion of, I guess, the economic instruments that can be used to bring about the change that's necessary reminds me of, I might be wrong, but one of my main takeaways from the book I mentioned before, The Origins of Wealth, was that, and I also got this kind of from The Entrepreneurial State that I read more recently. I can't remember her name, but it's this notion.
Mariana Mazzucato.
Yes, that's it. It's this notion that the government sort of, like through this evolutionary framing, sets the fitness function for the operating environment. They sort of just sets, not entirely, but like it plays a tremendous role in saying here are the sorts of solutions that we desire, and creating incentives to try to bring those about. So it's kind of like the gardener in a way, giving attention to plants that need more attention because we want them to bear fruit, pulling out the weeds that we think are terrible, putting up retaining walls, doing all that sort of stuff to so interfering, but so that the new solutions and new ways of doing things can kind of come to be and emerge. Is that the right way of thinking about the role of government? At least from
I think Mariana Mazzucato has the right question in the sense that she's focusing very clearly on this idea of a growing, prosperous, a growing economy and an evolving economy is a necessary thing, and she fundamentally identifies innovation policy as the core sort of thing that government needs to focus on. I don't have quite as much confidence as she does in the ability of government to predict what that space will look like. But again, this is a debate between reasonable people about how far you can push that argument. I prefer far more market experimentation and government cleaning up afterwards. Her preference is for government to set a sort of series of tracks for markets to run down. Reasonable people can disagree about that, and who knows what? Maybe we need both in that sense.
Yeah.
But this idea, I think, what we do agree on very clearly is that the central role of government here is to facilitate innovation, and to facilitate the design of economic rules to drive the growth of knowledge and transformation forward. So, on that, what I would direct your listeners to, Mariana Mazzucato's books are very good on this. She focuses a lot on what's called mission-oriented innovation and the role of government in selecting big missions, like going to the moon or curing cancer and so on, and just directing innovation resources toward that. I'm a big fan of the economic historian Joel Mokyr, and he's written a fantastic book recently called The Culture of Growth, which sort of sets out the same story told from this perspective of the 17th, 18th, 19th century around this idea of just exploration of knowledge, and just how a lot of the things that we sort of just take as obvious for granted directions to go in now that you can point to and go, okay, that's clearly a well-meaning king or a well-meaning government would obviously want us to go in that direction. Those things were much harder than we initially thought. So I'm just more of the perspective that the role of government is more to facilitate experimentation, which mostly means allowing it and cleaning up the mess afterwards and trying to minimize the risk in the process, rather than standing at the front and leading the march. But the only reason I argue that is I just think it's a really, really hard thing to do that you're going to get wrong most of the time. Entrepreneurs are good at being wrong because they're playing with someone else's money. They can start another company, that's fine. It's a badge of pride. Politicians don't like failure. They tend to be punished for it. Voters will never forgive them for a huge catastrophic mistake, whereas which is not what you need. If the goal is to develop new technologies, we need to make a lot of mistakes. We need to try a lot of things. And a fantastic example of this is vaccines. Right? So in the past year, we have had this unbelievable leap of technology in new types of vaccines. These mRNA ones that just wildly radical new approaches to vaccines. Vaccines have been stuck for 80 years in a bunch of just ways we thought we could build them. And, just a whole lot of things that we knew were viral that we could never fix. And suddenly, in 1 year, because we had to, because we just more or less just said, look, just try everything. Just throw money at it. Try whatever you can. We've got like 6 whole new types of vaccines that have been developed and built and pushed out to market in the space of a year. I read that as an example of what happens when you pull back the restraints and just go, look, let's just try everything because we have to. So I'm what that does is it makes me more optimistic about a whole bunch of other big, hard tech problems, including global warming, including just dealing with sort of all sorts of bacteria resistant sort of things, and just solar cells and just whatever. Right? There's a whole lot of things that. When we are willing to make more mistakes and tolerate more failure and just push harder, we can deliver a whole lot of new stuff. The other example I'll give of this that is in my wheelhouse right now is the whole crypto space. That's the thing about, I'm an innovation economist. I study innovation, and I tend to go where I think the most fascinating parts of the innovation economy are. And for the last 5 years, just absolutely by far the most interesting part of innovation is in crypto and blockchain, because it has just been moving so fast. It's the cycle time between development of a new bit of tech and adoption and building it out is just months, not years, and so on. That's a good example of an area where that is against Mazzucato's thesis. There's no sort of government departments that are driving this, or large publicly funded research centers devoted to it. In fact, there's a lot of effort to try and stop it. So, and again, this is one case example. I don't want to begin on that too much, but these are sort of vaccines in the crypto space are 2 just very recent examples where we've seen enormous acceleration of innovation, precisely when we were just willing to try everything and experiment. In the vaccines case, money no object. In the crypto space, it's all outside of the regulatory direction. Nothing.
Yeah, and it's because money's no object that crypto is getting more backing as well, right?
Yeah. So,
money prints a go burr.
Innovation can move very, very quickly, and it still can. And we're not at. I don't think we're at a kind of a point where we've picked all the low-hanging fruit, and the golden era of innovation is behind us. I think we're still, especially in the digital space, and the thing about the vaccine space is that it's digital biology. The next thing will be quantum, and we'll be able to hit this stuff with massively more powerful computing. Then we're going to go into machine learning and artificial intelligence and deep learning and so on. So the space of technological opportunity, I think, is still expanding in front of us. So I'm more concerned about how do we move quickly into that space. The opportunity cost of slowing down worries me a lot less than what we're missing out on. I'm sort of with Elon Musk on this. I think we're not pushing enough.